When there's so much negativity surrounding one desired goal, there's little to no hope of growth, prosperity, and reputation. However, for Qatar, future looks different. Qatar have faced stiff opposition from Western countries ahead of the 2022 FIFA World Cup for its open denial of flexibility towards un-Islamic practices. Many Western countries, Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, the United States, Denmark, Wales, England, and the Netherlands, have protested and spoken out against the restrictions imposed by Qatar on fans visiting the World Cup stadiums. These protests began as soon as FIFA awarded Qatar the right to host the World Cup 10 years ago. Initially, news and protests circulated on social media were for labor abuse. However, the emphasis has now shifted entirely to restrictions on beer and illegal relationships under Qatari laws. It is unfortunate to say, however, factually correct that these negations were to be expected from the West, since it is frequently observed that these states find it easy to tell other countries to change their ways in order to allow them to integrate well, regardless of how badly never-ending Western demands and complaints about other cultures affect people globally. The important thing to remember here is that these restrictions were imposed not only to protect Islamic practices, but also to eliminate the source of multiple crimes, potential abuse, and dangerous verbal exchanges that can also occur during World Cup matches under the influence of intoxicants. Qatar undoubtedly proceeded with these bans to keep the fans secure without discriminating against any group or nationality, as Islam protects the rights of minorities, regardless of whether they worship idols or anything else. The amusing thing about these negotiations is that none of the Western countries has ceased receiving gas and oil from Qatar. Instead, they only want to put an end to games played on Arab lands. But why? To know the clear intent behind such aggressive stances is hard. Still, the whole propaganda does not seem to focus on human rights issues, which should be the main focus, as it is concerning and needs to be taken into account by the Qatari authorities. Sadly, the focus is more on what Qatari culture shouldn't be. The vast majority of Western fans have avoided the World Cup just because of the Qatari restrictions. Many of them took to their social media to express their objections to Qatar, that they didn't want Qatar to have it in the first place. And some clearly said it shouldn't have been happening in that region, indirectly insinuating bigotry and racism toward Arabic speakers. That simultaneously fueled discussion on what the West precisely wants from the Arabs or the Muslims. The main targets of criticism are Qatar's tradition and laws, which are, as we all know, derived from Islam. Fans of Qatar from across the world are becoming wary of the continued hostility as a result of this. They are persuaded that the issue is really one of racism or Islamophobia, rather than a violation of human rights. Since many comments made online on the ongoing Qatari hosting of the World Cup sound more anti-Islam than anti-Qatar, the individuals who supported Qatari laws communicated to the press that it's in fact anti-Muslim campaign, not the voice for human rights as they claim. If we bear their culture during the World Cup with beer or champagne, with fans having immoral dance parties outside stadiums, which is against our culture, they should also follow the rules of the state they're in. They further protested that Muslims never do what England fans did outside the stadium some time ago. Many of the Western fans also giggled and made fun of Qatar's losses by saying they can't buy it. Most of the European states are already out of the tournament, and many others, including Germany, whose team protested by covering up their mouths over the armband ban by FIFA. The teams at the forefront of all the nuisance are Germany, England, Denmark, and Belgium. The German Interior Minister was caught on camera wearing an armband banned by FIFA on orders of the law and order agencies in Qatar, which gave the Germany-Japan match a slightly more political turn. Numerous fans of Qatar's position entered stadiums with banners and images of Mesut Ozil after these actions went popular on social media, stating that Germany's Muslim footballer was not treated with love. For the duration of the games, spectators stood with their mouths closed to show Germans that how they treated Mesut also violated his rights. Though not just football supporters were demoralized by the West's politically motivated assaults against Qatari Islamic regulations, the anti-Islamic policies narrative has given other Muslim football teams fresh resilience and boosted their optimism for victory. This game of the West is boundless and never-ending. Nevertheless, given that it has a phenomenal infrastructure that is brand new and dependable, it appears like Qatar is laying the road for further possibilities to host major big events in the future, assuming maintenance is maintained. Over the past 10 years, Qatar has undoubtedly made significant investments in order to host this unique event. You must be wondering, how much is it beneficial for Qatar? Is it worth investing billions? Is generally the most often asked question when it comes to putting on an occasion of this kind. Well, not much worthy for now, though it can be beneficial for the future. It's a well-known fact that all the revenue generated from selling marketing and broadcasting rights or ticket sales is kept by FIFA and its subsidiaries. Nevertheless, FIFA will be paying $1.7 billion to Qatar for hosting the tournament, which is quite a small amount as compared to what Qatar has invested. It is expected that Qatar will be able to cover this cost in the upcoming years. But the things that actually benefit the host are the numbers of tourists, signed future contracts, and publicity. Football fans visiting Qatar are already loving the atmosphere. One of the English fans, Ellie Mollison, who visited Qatar, told Times, "I've got to say, coming here has been a real shock to my system. There have been no catcalls, wolf whistles, or sexism of any kind. I had all these preconceived notions about what I would encounter. The reality has been nothing like that. I've not experienced any of the harassment I've experienced in England. I don't know how they have achieved that, but it's an amazing environment to experience." Many other women posted videos on social media showing how safe Qatar is by leaving their belongings on a table at a hotel, open to see if it gets looted. When nobody touched their belongings, many followers remained shocked. Many even said it's hard to do in Europe because you're never going to have your things back. Piers Morgan, a known journalist, spoke to the Telegraph UK about Qatar and the campaigns going on against Qatar's stance. From here in Qatar, the tournament bears no resemblance to all the doom-mongering headlines back home in the UK. People who went and stayed in Qatar tourist tents were surprised and amazed to see the level of hospitality, law and order, and culture. Qataris also welcomed non-Muslim fans visiting the mosque open-heartedly, opening the window wide open for da'wah. It has undoubtedly helped Qatar to regain control over the Western narrative and have landed them chances to introduce new horizons to its residents. The Western-initiated political initiatives ultimately failed after stadium spectators began waving Palestinian flags and chanting Palestine while watching sports. And the latest altercation between intoxicated English and Welsh supporters on the roadways of Tenerife. With Justin Bieber launching the water company Generosity in Qatar recently to provide the world with clean drinking water, there have been significant other trade contracts that have been signed with Qatar companies. Being the first Arab country to host this huge international World Cup event, Qatar has also been able to pave the way for other Arab Muslim states in the Gulf region for sports and international events, such as for Saudi Arabia. It's in the news already that Cristiano Ronaldo has an agreement with Saudi Arabia team for £173 million a year after his exit from Manchester United. Saudis are rejoicing at this news. The success of Qatar, which attracted major brands and other celebrities, sent a strong message to the rest of the world that other Muslim nations can host larger events without compromising their legal systems and cultural norms, and that historically, nearly all of the World Cup hosts still have some human rights issues to resolve.